Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris, and I am your host. And when we went to break, we were talking with Kareem uh, Weaver, who is with the Education Committee of the Oakland branch of the NAACP, and we were talking about poverty and its impact upon one's ability to learn and read. And I believe we were talking about the fact that many of us grew up in poverty, right. And many of us never use that as an excuse because, frankly, I don't believe it's an excuse for not learning. It's more fundamental than that.
You know, Bob, I remember after having graduated from college, having a conversation with my mother about poverty. And she was trying to tell me that I grew up in poverty. And I was like, what are you talking about? I had no idea. That we just lived our life, we did the best we could, but she said, yeah, we didn't have money, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, we didn't have the other. That's what they call poverty. It's
Exactly.
like, oh, really? But what people don't understand is there are different kinds of poverty. And the assumption is that financial poverty is the worst. There can be poverty of the mind, poverty of the spirit, there can be poverty in family. And those things oftentimes are much worse, but it has never stopped people from achieving at high levels. It's an inhibitor.
Exactly.
It's an inhibitor. It takes away some of the cushion that you have and some of the things that can catch you if you fall, or some of the supplements. However, our minds are sharp, and our people have always endured and been able to achieve at high levels. It's insulting. So I told these folks in the school systems that I talked to, I was like, no, that's not an acceptable reason. That's not. Something else is going on. Come to find out that we actually weren't teaching kids to read.
Right.
We weren't giving them direct, explicit
There you
instruction.
go.
We weren't taking it from A and going to Z. We left out pieces of the code. We weren't teaching them how to crack the code. We were focusing on things that felt comfortable, ideologies that felt comfortable, but we just didn't do the nuts and bolts to teach kids to read. And instead of
we just made
that,
an assumption. Poor black kid can't learn. Nothing we can do. It's an assumption that we made.
It's an assumption, and it's built on what was once called the soft bigotry of low expectations. And I'm not sure there's anything soft about it. And that plays into other aspects of education, but specifically reading. When a child struggles to read, we attribute that to different factors.
Right.
For African American children, for our black kids, oftentimes it's said, well, let's just give them more time. It's a delay. Or we don't actually expect them to be doing better, and so we don't.
We call that low expectation.
That's exactly right. Now, the official diagnosis of dyslexia from Yale, Dr. Shaywood says that there's a gap between the intelligence of the child and how they're performing. Well, that's most of our kids. I'm not saying that they have this neurocognitive condition, but in other words, in order to trigger the alarm that something is wrong, you have to first have the expectation that kids can achieve in the first place. If we don't have that expectation, then 18%, 19%, in your curriculum, nothing actually triggers the alarm in time to do something about it. And that's one of the problems that we have.
I remember when, and it's all in my book called Goodbye Arkadelphia. I was born and raised in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and I remember clearly that the black teachers that taught us, they had an expectation that we could learn, and we really believed that we could learn, and that was an overriding factor in terms of our ability to learn. If people expect for you to learn, you learn.
Right.
People don't expect for you to learn, you don't learn.
Bob, you're so right. And there's something insidious about what's happened here in Oakland. 7 years in a row, Oakland Unified was the fastest gaining urban district in California. 7 years in a row.
When you say gaining, what do you mean?
Academic performance, reading.
Okay.
People were coming back to the district.
They were?
They were. This is back when Tony Smith was the superintendent.
Oh, yeah, I remember
7 years in a row. A little while later, 11 of the lowest 75 schools in terms of third grade reading in California, Oakland Unified. LA only has 6. You know, LA Unified is like a small city or a big city compared to Oakland Unified. We only have 35,000 kids in OUSD, almost double the number of schools. What happened to us as an institution? We changed curriculum. We bought into the notion that kids could have self-directed learning and discover their way towards literacy. Literacy is not a natural process. You got to figure it out. You have to be taught how to read. This is a pervasive mindset. It is called constructivist thinking. It's a progressive form of education, and it is highly regarded in the field. And so now that Oakland Unified wants to shift back to a more structured approach, they actually have to go about winning hearts and minds, because their staff has learned from the universities, from their peers, from the community at large, the education community, that that's the right way to do things. And so by design, the curriculum was only designed to reach 40% at max of students, by design, because it didn't actually have a strong foundational skills component. Imagine that. Imagine that a school district that features mostly, or that has mostly black and brown students, actually adopted a curriculum for reading that didn't have a component to teach kids the foundations of reading. And no one has stood before the community and said, our bad, we blew it, we apologize. When you know better, you do better. We thought that was right. The publisher sold us a bill of goods. We misunderstood, but it's our bad. And we apologize. Maybe it's a liability concern, maybe it's whatever, but they have never stood up. And so now that it's time to shift back, there's some trepidation.
Well, yes, I can understand that, because once you start off in the wrong direction and get hung up in that, you want to keep on going.
That's
now,
right.
how do they reverse that and go in the right direction?
Well, that's part of what we're trying to do with the education committee. We're trying to support them in redirecting course. We've spoken to the superintendent, we've spoken to her team under the leadership of Cynthia Adams and President George Highland. We've spoken to the district officials, and they have signaled that yes, this is the direction we want to go in, a more structured approach. And we want to partner. They're going to pick a curriculum. They're going to do a bunch of different things. But they're struggling. They're struggling to find their way. We have to actually clarify the steps that need to be taken. And we count on folks like the American Federation of Teachers, who've laid it out on their website, and our own.
Now, are they supportive?
The American Federation of Teachers, we haven't had that conversation, but we look at their publicly available information, and it's laid out right there, the steps that you need to do to have an effective reading program. It's all laid out. So we're not, in fact, in our administrative petition, we actually asked Oakland Unified to look at their website and identify those steps and follow those steps. So it's not rocket science what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to do basic common sense things that can help our kids get where they need to go.
Well, if the American Federation of Teachers has it on its website, it seems to me that that's something that they want to do. And if that's true, then why aren't we doing it?
Oakland is distracted.
What do you mean?
We have so many things. You know, you can always tell how things are going by what conversations and what fights people are having. We're not even fighting about the right things.
What are we fighting
We're
about?
fighting about, should we have district schools at charter schools? Should we have, reparations for black students? Should we have, which is all that's important. I don't want to diminish that, but, to quote our education chair, if Johnny can't read, nothing else matters. We're distracted about which schools to close, which ones to keep open. What does the budget look like? What are the programs going to be? What supplements to give? And so what we're trying to say is, wait a second. You are nibbling around the edges here. Let's get to the heart of the matter. In core classroom instruction, when you have 20 to 30 kids sitting in front of a teacher all day long, K through 5, what are they being taught? Is that designed to get the most number of kids reading or not? Choose a curriculum that has evidence of success for kids. You have to start the process there. If you don't start the process there, anything you build is on a bed of sand.
Evidence of success. I think that's something that we're going to talk about when we come back from break, because we're going to talk about the administrative petition that was filed by the Oakland branch of the NAACP. Don't touch that remote. We will be right back with All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris, and my guest is Kareem Weaver. We'll be right back.